Sup, it's Hallie, and welcome back to Doki Doki Within. When we last left off, we were making pamphlets with Monica, and that's about it. Monica dismisses my question quickly as we make our way up. I forget what the question was. Oh right, she was asking about us taking her to our bedroom. Fun times. Once in my room, I ask Monica for her USB. She passes it to me, and I start to load the file and hook up the printer. Whilst I'm doing all that, Monica sits on my bed simply looking around.
Your room's much cleaner than
I do clean pretty regularly. Plus, it'd be kinda rude not to, cause obviously you were coming over. That sounded better in my head.
You're very considerate.
Thanks, Monica. I smile back at her. Also, I've got the file up. It looks really professional, but my section is still blank. My voice drills off. Sorry, I forgot to send something over.
You don't have to apologize. If you want, you can quickly type up one of your poems up.
Type up one of your poems up? Maybe you'll need one of those up, my friend.
Or we could find one online together. No pressure.
I give the choice some thought. I decide to grab my notebook out of my bag and flick through the pages. My gaze then fixates on my poem, Horizon. That seems to be received pretty well, so I decide to type that, rather. Once finished, I save the file just in case my computer decides to act up. I glance over at Monica and our eyes fixate on each other. She suddenly averts her eyes with a noticeable red tint to her face. I can't explain it, but there's this sort of tense feeling when it's just the two of us. It's not a bad feeling at all. It feels more romantic, I suppose? So, how many copies are we gonna need?
I mean, the main document itself is 6 pages. And there's 24 desks in the club room.
She thinks for a bit. Difficult math.
That'd mean about 144.
I'll just print 150, just to be sure.
Well, that should be enough.
I set up the document for printing. It starts quite smoothly. Eventually, however, it soon starts to stall. On instinct, I slap the machine. Come on! Another pair of hits. I don't know what I thought that's in. Work, damn it!
Didn't know you'd like to be so rough.
Monica giggles softly, causing the already present blush on my face to deepen. She seems to notice this. Auto-ending text boxes.
Did I say that out loud? Sorry.
We can barely look each other in the eye for a few minutes. The room is silent, aside from the fans of my computer and the sounds of the printer. Those sounds soon stop and the printer beeps. I look at the small LCD display. Out of ink. There was more text there, but I accidentally skipped it. Fucking great, is what it said. As before, Monica notices my frustration, and her own expression seems to almost match it. The look in her eyes, however, carries the feeling of everything's going wrong. I get up from my desk. Hey, I'm just gonna get some water. Before I can step out the door, I hear Monica shoot up from my bed, and she clings tightly to me, holding her head against my chest. Monica? I fall silent as Monica's glassy eyes focus on mine.
Sorry, it's been that I've been so stressed about the festival.
It's just been that I've been?
I just really want to get it right.
To my shock, Monica's started to cry, but I'm still able to make out her words clearly. Faintly hearing her cry on Thursday was one thing, but seeing it is another story entirely, especially this close. She's been working hard for the festival, probably a bit too hard, some would say. I'd hate to see all of this working go to waste. It takes me a while, but I soon wrap my arms around her in return. Again, I don't know how she's going to react to it, but at the same time, it just feels right. Monica's once hastened breathing starts to slow. She emits a short yet comfortable hum as she closes her eyes. Her hugs are warm and slightly relaxing, though I'm not entirely sure if that last part applies more to her than it does to me. I would be kind of concerned if her hugs were not relaxing. I've taken notice that her shoulders have loosened a bit and her breathing has returned to a steady pace. Do you want to head out front for a bit, or for some air? Monica pulls away from me, her arms still wrapped loosely around my waist. I think you need Ian loosely?
I think that'd be good for me, thanks.
She then unwraps her arms and we head outside. Once we're outside, Monica exhales loudly in relief. You okay?
Yeah.
She soon sighs.
Sorry for freaking out back there.
Monica, you don't need to.
But I'm just letting the smallest thing...
Monica looks me deep in the eyes.
I really want to get this right.
I know you do, but... I stop as I try to think of how best to word this. It's taking a toll on you, that much is obvious. And honestly, I don't want to see you beat yourself up over things you can't control. There's a bit of silence. You're gonna make the event great regardless of what happens. I promise that. You can't promise that, dude.
Thanks.
There's a bit more silence between us. It's a silence full of understanding. An idea then pops into my head. How about we go to the library and get them printed there?
That sounds like a good idea.
Monica beams at me. I start to step back inside. Let me get my jacket. I quickly rush upstairs and pick out the first jacket I can find. My usual black pleather jacket. Pleather? I'm still surprised at how good of a condition it is. Or it's in, rather. I fetch my wallet. Can't really get this sorted out without my remember card. A thought crosses my head, but I instantly suppress it. No, that'd be awkward. This isn't a day.
Allie, you okay up there?
Monica calls from downstairs. Calls to me from downstairs? Yeah. I then head back downstairs. Monica is waiting for me with both a smile and slightly red cheeks. You ready to go? I return her smile. She nods and we head off. The walk to the library is a mostly quiet one, aside from some small talk. The silence in between those brief moments of conversation isn't as awkward as I'd worried it would be. To the contrary, it's honestly quite comforting. Out of the corner of my eye, I can notice Monica taking small glances at me, but I don't bring attention to it for the sake of keeping the comforting atmosphere from shifting. We soon make it to the library and enter, searching for the nearest computer, which thankfully doesn't take us long. I take a seat and start logging in, whilst Monica takes a seat between me and a nearby window. You know, they kind of use the word whilst a lot, when they could just use while. I don't know, probably maybe even trade out just half of them. As I'm preparing the file to print the pamphlets, I realize that I can't remember how many sheets Monica said we'd need. Hey, how many sheets did you say we'd... My voice comes to a halt as I look over at Monica. She's gazing out the window, seemingly lost in a daydream. What was she looking at there? My eyes then follow down her arm and discover that she's resting her... Wait. She's resting her hand on my thigh. Without a word or a second thought, I gently rest my hand on top of hers and smile gently to myself. After a minute like this, Monica looks back at me and returns my smile, not even noticing that our hands are touching. Maybe she was fully aware of what she was doing.
What were you asking again?
Not once does that smile leave her radiant face. I just wanted to ask how many sheets we'd need. I kind of forgot.
Well,
Her eyes flick downwards and she finally notices our hands. We retract our hands and look away from each other, blushing profusely.
Sorry, I just spaced out.
Her delivery doesn't carry the certainty she was trying to give off. Monica, Besides, isn't spacing out supposed to be my job?
Sometimes I've got to fill in for you in that department.
She giggles cutely.
Oh, and you said you were printing 150.
I nod as I begin the process.
You know that isn't a very difficult number to remember.
Shut up. Given the sheer amount of paper needed, the printing process takes a good few minutes. Whilst we wait, both Monica and I make timid, flustered glances at each other. Before all the pages are printed, I decide to buy a cheap folder to keep them all together. Once we have everything sorted, we make our way out back onto the street. That'd be a heck of a folder to hold 150 pages, dude. You need like a ream. It isn't too long till my stomach rumbles. Maybe I should have had a little bit more for breakfast, or eaten anything today. Hey, Monica.
Yeah,
I'm feeling kind of hungry. Do you mind if we find somewhere to eat?
of course, I don't mind.
Oh, I guess it's probably around like lunchtime for them or something.
In fact, I know a place that's pretty close by.
In that case, you lead the way. After a relatively short walk, we find ourselves in a cafe. The radio plays a soft tune and the atmosphere itself seems quite cozy. Monica's sure got a good eye for places like this. We seat ourselves at a booth near the main window of the place. My eyes scan the menu. The prices seem pretty standard. Nothing too cheap, nothing overly expensive.
See anything you like?
I'll probably get the chicken and white rice. I know, I'm basic as hell. For some reason, that seems to get a chuckle from Monica.
Oh, Hallie. You're a lot of things, but basic certainly isn't one of them.
This remix is like a little off-key and it's kind of driving me nuts. Monica gazes out the window, a sly smile forming on her lips. A moment passes in silence, a silence only broken by the sounds of the kitchen and radio. So, you want to come with me to order?
Of course.
We go up to the counter together and order our food. Monica ended up ordering a salad. I was insistent on paying, something that she was ready to protest until realizing that I was the only one of us that brought any money. I think insistent is spelled with an E, isn't it? The look on her face suggests she doesn't mind it, though. We return to the booth and begin the wait. The pair of us start a more lively conversation during the wait. We end up going from the festival and music to what we've been up to since the second year. All of it seems like mere nostalgic reminiscing until...
You know, Hallie, I've missed talking to you like this.
Honestly, I have too. Like, we've got more in common than I'd realized. Monica's cheeks adopt a red haze that fades as quickly as it had appeared.
Maybe there's more to it than that.
She whispers, but I'm able to hear what she says. I look down and notice that our hands are touching once again. However, upon looking up, Monica's gaze meets mine. Unlike when this happened back at the library, she appears fully aware of what she's doing. Monica?
Hallie.
Her certain tones silence me. My heart is pounding harder than ever before. Her face fills my vision, and the one thing I can focus on are her eyes. In a way, I'm reminded of a song from my childhood. Pretty green eyes, so full of sparkle and such light.
There's been something I've wanted to tell you. For a while now.
She moves to interlock my fingers with her own. Her touch is warm. Despite the growing blush on her face, her confidence doesn't falter. Is this really happening?
It's been something I've been holding in for a while. It wasn't until recently that I discovered that it never left me.
I slightly tighten my grip on her hand. I'm listening. Monica giggles cutely.
God, it feels like something out of a cheesy movie.
She pauses and averts her gaze, if only for a moment.
Well...
She didn't get to say it.
The truth is that I'm in love.
Monica is then suddenly cut short by some knocks on the window, followed by two distinctly familiar voices. The pair of us look to the glass and, to my surprise, it's Sayori and Natsuki. I can't clearly make out what either of them are saying, but they've quickly started going towards the cafe entrance. On instinct, both Monica and I retract our hands and our eyes avert away from one another's.
Hey, you two!
Sayori's the... She smiles at us both before taking a seat next to me.
I knew there was another reason why you wanted to help Monica, Hallie.
Natsuki comes in soon after and takes a seat next to Monica.
You're way too predictable.
No. I'm at a loss for words. What are you two doing here anyways?
I can ask you the same thing.
Natsuki pouts in frustration.
We ran out of some of the ingredients we needed and decided to get them. Then I got hungry.
It's good seeing Sayori back to her usual self.
Oh, that we went past here. We saw you and Monica holding hands.
Sayori stops herself as she notices Monica, who hasn't said a word since either of them joined us.
Are you okay, Monica? Hmm? Yeah, I'm fine. Just gotta use the bathroom. 1 sec.
Monica hurriedly gets up and excuses herself before rushing over to the cafe's restroom. Pretty sure you need to Ian hurriedly. From the quick glance I got of her face, she looked utterly embarrassed. Oh, and I actually did look this up. There's 2 R's and 2 S's in embarrassed, all the time. My mind replays what she was saying before she was cut off. She can't have been trying to. Oh my god. She wasn't she? My voice turns into a grumble as I place my hands over my face in my own embarrassment. Oh, there was another one. The memories of everything that led up to this moment swirl around in my head. Fuck, it seems so obvious now. Why didn't I notice it sooner? All the blushing. So much blushing. I really am tense, aren't I?
Howie.
Sayori's voice sends my hands slowly back to the table, but I stay silent. Yeah? Her eyes dart nervously between Natsuki and Sayori. My eyes, rather. Whilst Natsuki looks like she's wondering what drugs I'm on, Sayori gives me a knowing, slightly regretful smile. Almost like she's realized what was going on.
Howie?
Natsuki's tone reaffirms her confusion. Sayori glances at her, only adding to it.
Sayori, what the hell's going on?
Sayori stands up and quickly goes over to Natsuki and starts whispering. Judging by her expression, she seems to be relaying everything about me and Monica. Better her saying it than me struggling to get it out. Nat's expressions shift from ones that say I knew it to ones of utter disbelief. After Sayori finishes, she sits back down next to me and Natsuki has a moment before she looks straight at me.
Was she really gonna?
Her voice trails off as I nod, silently confirming what she just... She sighs.
I know I teased you about that, but if I knew that was going on... I'm sorry.
Natsuki, it's fine. The blush doesn't leave my cheeks. I had no idea that she... Sayori pats me on the back.
Hey, if you don't want to make a big deal out of this, that's okay.
Natsuki nods in agreement, her eyes still seemingly full of regret. She's honestly got nothing to be sorry about. It's not like she was meant to know what Monica was going to ask. I sure as hell didn't expect it. The tense silence is then broken by Monica coming back to join us.
Sorry it took so long.
Monica takes a seat next to Natsuki.
So, Sayori, how did the prep with Yuri go?
Monica's demeanor has completely shifted from when we'd last seen her. It almost feels like she's trying to put aside what happened to not make the situation awkward.
Doing great. I promised her I wouldn't spoil anything, but we think you guys are gonna love it.
In that case, I look forward to it.
As do I.
Natsuki opts for a wide, toothy grin instead of words. Sayori and Natsuki didn't stay for much longer. They left not long after mine and Monica's food arrived. My best guess is that they decided to eat somewhere else. Either that, or they thought it'd be best to give us some time alone. Of course, I'm not complaining. More time with Monica is always welcome. Especially with food as good as this. Monica and I spent a little bit longer in town than either of us had planned. Again, couldn't complain about spending more time with her. Better yet, she seemed a bit more relaxed in aftermath of her seeming failed confession, the aftermath. She didn't bring it up, and, for her sake, neither did I. I'm just waiting for her to come out whilst she collects her belongings. I'd also handed her the folder with the sheets in, as she said she'd assemble them when she got back. In time, she comes out. Got everything?
Yep. Thanks for today. I really enjoyed myself. Aside from a few hiccups, I think we had a good time, made a good team.
It's no worry. If you ever want to have another day with this, if you ever want to have another day this, you can always. Day like this? I stopped myself at the realization of what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that I enjoyed myself too.
Aw, Hallie.
She then steps closer to me.
I might take you up up on that offer.
Deciding to seize the moment before she can, I run my hands down Monica's arms and gently squeeze her hands in my own. She giggles at the feeling. I was wondering. I feel Monica's grasp closing tightly, yet gently on my hands. After our event's finished, would you like to spend some time at the festival? Not what I really wanted to ask, but I guess it'll suffice. Without a second thought, Monica gives my hands another squeeze and gets on her tiptoes. Her smile seems brighter when she's this close.
I'd love to.
After saying that, Monica takes a step back, presumably trying to avoid our faces getting too close. Part of me thinks she wouldn't mind that, though. To be completely honest, I wouldn't mind it either. I guess I'll see you tomorrow?
See you tomorrow.
After that, Monica starts to walk back home, whilst I retreat back into the warmth of mine.